This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for Thursday, May 2nd. I'm Mark Martin. Several Democrats are calling for the resignation of Attorney General William Barr after a heated 5-hour testimony before a Senate committee Wednesday. Much of the debate centered around a letter from Special Counsel Robert Mueller to Barr, criticizing aspects of his summary of the report on the Russia investigation. In it, Mueller writes, the summary letter the department sent to Congress and released to the public did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of the office's work and conclusions.
He said that his concern focused on his explanation of why he did not reach a conclusion on obstruction. And he wanted more put out on that issue. But he was very clear with me that he was not suggesting that we had misrepresented his report. The letter's a bit snitty, and I think it was probably written by one of his staff people.
Reporter Amber Strong joins us now from the CBN News Washington Bureau. She's following the story. Amber, what is the reaction this morning from Democrats?
Democrats are kind of taking this letter and running with it, and they're saying that this is proof that William Barr was not truthful with them during an earlier hearing when he didn't reveal that there were kind of some things going on, some disdain behind the scenes between himself and the Mueller team. So they've taken that and they've ran with it, and some of them some of the senators on the Hill are calling for his resignation, and a number of presidential candidates as well, including Kamala Harris and former Vice President Joe Biden.
What about Republicans? What's their reaction to all of this?
Lindsey Graham, who is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary, said he's done with it. He's over it. No more hearings. The report itself showed that there was no collusion. He will not be calling Robert Mueller to come and testify like we're seeing on the House side with Jerry Nadler, and that he's done with the entire investigation unless we're talking about investigating the investigators and the origins of how this thing got started in the first place. And of course, the president going on Fox Business last night saying that he was pleased with William Barr and his performance yesterday.
All right, Amber Strong reporting from our Washington Bureau. Thanks, Amber. Evangelical leaders met Tuesday afternoon at the Trump Hotel to discuss ways to help re-elect President Donald Trump. They prayed for the president and discussed 2020 and the issue of immigration policy. Pastor Robert Jeffress was one of the attendees.
I think people on both sides of the immigration issue realize we've got a problem that needs to be solved. We have to balance defending our nation with showing compassion to those who need it. And so I think that's a major agenda item for Christians and really many Americans. You can be sure the administration is working on that right now. And I think whatever policy comes out is going to reflect President Trump's beliefs.
It wasn't an official meeting of the President's Faith Advisory Board, but many who were there do serve in that group. Today is the National Day of Prayer, and people all over the country are gathering together to pray, even on Capitol Hill. CBN's Abigail Robertson brings us more on how lawmakers are celebrating this special day.
Each year during the week of the National Day of Prayer, this group sets up in front of the Capitol, rain or shine, for a 90-hour Bible reading marathon. Around 400 people from around the world are taking part this year, including a few lawmakers.
Let the Lord himself require.
Keith Davidson, who's leading this year's event, tells CBN News volunteers read throughout the night.
We had a lady last night who was on standby from Alabama that flew in just to read, and she left back out this morning at 6 a.m.
This annual tradition dates back to 1990. As you can see, they have tons of different versions and translations of the Bible here. Can you tell us some of the most unique you have?
Yes, Abigail, if you'll look here, we have a Farsi Bible, and folks can come by and read that in their language. We also have a Russian Bible, and we have a Chinese Bible that a group yesterday, a Chinese church actually here in Washington, D.C., brought out.
And concludes on the National Day of Prayer with a reading from Revelation.
God, we lift up your name. We lift up your word in the precious name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
This year's theme is Love One Another.
It's an appropriate theme, especially for this time.
Congressman Johnson is spearheading efforts towards unity in Congress.
It's a bipartisan effort to just get members to talk to each other and basically follow the golden rule, to treat one another with dignity and respect as fellow Americans and part of the American family. Lawmakers and faith leaders like Dr. Ronnie Floyd and Pastor Andrew Brunson will join together inside the nation's capital Thursday night to pray.
It's one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had, to be able to come right in Statuary Hall, right in the centerpiece, the epicenter of American government, and to be able to pray and sing and worship and have this kind of service that we will have.
To see if there's an event happening in your area today, visit nationaldayofprayer.org. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
In other news, tensions in Venezuela are reaching a boiling point. Venezuelans filled the streets this week after opposition leader Juan Guaido called them to a widespread military uprising. But dictator Nicolas Maduro's military did not heed the call, but instead dispersed crowds with tear gas. Guaido said that ousting Maduro was just around the corner. Maduro has accused protesters of serious crimes that would not go unpunished. Meanwhile, protesters outside Venezuela's embassy in Washington, D.C. are demanding that the United States stay out of Venezuelan politics. The reappearance of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi suggests the Islamic State group has survived the war in Syria. In this video, the ISIS leader talks about the Easter attacks in Sri Lanka. All of this has brought renewed pain for some of the parents of children who have joined ISIS. On the CBN News program, The Global Lane, Christiana Boudreau shares the story of how her 21-year-old son left Canada and died fighting with ISIS. She says her faith has helped her move beyond the heartache.
Still have some of those difficult days. Trust me, it never goes away, especially wondering what those last moments were, not being there as a parent to try to protect them, save them, feeling so helpless for so long. No matter how much I begged him to come home, it was absolutely devastating and nowhere to turn. Who could understand what I was going through without the name calling and all the negative comments and understanding how much pain our family was in?
And I imagine you probably had a tendency to beat yourself up a little bit, saying, if I had only done this, how could I have prevented this? Could I have been a better parent? Could I have done this or that? Did you go through that? What did you go through?
I think every parent does. We all question ourselves. It's the first thing that we do is go within ourselves. And the guilt you carry is overwhelming. It was a matter of all the education and the learning that I did to understand the powers of these groups, to understand that, yes, of course, I could have done many things different. We all can about everything in our lives, but we do the best that we can with the tools that we have at that moment. So emotionally now, at times I still hold that guilt. Logically, I understand the path and how this takes place and the strength of it all.
And I'm sure your faith has helped you through that, has it not? Tell me about that.
It's the only thing I could hang on to. What else do you have? I lost another son in 2001 and almost lost my faith at that time. And in the end, only came through because of it. We try to find something to hang on to. Even though that anger is there, you still need to have that strength to keep pulling you through each day, to wake you up in the morning, to find a new purpose and a new goal in life.
Boudreau heads up an organization called Mothers for Life Network. The group is helping people overcome loss and grief. It's also raising awareness about preventing children from becoming radicalized. Hear more from Christiana Boudreau on The Global Lane. It's on the CBN News Channel tonight at 9:30 Eastern. Kentucky's Covington Catholic High School student Nick Sandman's attorney is suing NBC Universal for $275 million. Sandman is the student who found himself at the center of controversy after attending a March for Life event in January. Video of him standing face-to-face with a Native American man went viral. Reports went out that he and other schoolmates were confronting the Native Americans at rallies that day. His lawyer says the media corporation created a false narrative by portraying the alleged confrontation as a hate crime committed by Nicholas. Sandman's attorney has already filed a lawsuit against CNN and The Washington Post. Coming up, meet the Muslim author who says he would rather live in a country run by Christian principles than live under an Islamic theocracy where Sharia is the law of the land.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. You're about to meet a Muslim author who has a dire warning for the West and Christians in particular about how political correctness is allowing radical Islamists to flourish. George Thomas has today's episode of World Beat.
Hello everyone, welcome to World Beat, where we show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it. As Sri Lankan authorities worry about the potential of more suicide attacks by the group behind the Easter Sunday bombings, one newspaper has published an exhaustive study of all the Islamic terror attacks around the world since 9/11. According to the German newspaper Die Welt, Islamic extremists have carried out 31,222 attacks in the past 18 years. Those attacks have killed 146,811 people around the world. Most of the victims have been Muslim. The newspaper analyzed all the information gathered by the Global Terrorism Database at the University of Maryland to come up with the numbers of attacks and lives lost. The list concludes with the recent attacks in Sri Lanka that killed at least 253 people and injured more than 500 when suicide bombers targeted churches and hotels on the island nation. Joining me to discuss the impact of those sobering numbers is Muhammad Tawhidi. He's a third-generation Iranian-born Australian Muslim and author of The Tragedy of Islam, Admissions of a Muslim Imam. Mr. Tawhidi, thank you so much for coming on the show. The research shows the geography of Islamist terror stretches today from Europe to the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. How do we combat the scourge of radical Islamic terrorism?
Greetings and thank you very much for having me on. Firstly, in order for us to combat and tackle this wave of terrorism, we need to understand that the definition of terrorism that we use is different from that of the jihadists. The jihadists do not believe that what they are doing is wrong. They believe it is noble to blow themselves up, and therefore there is a clash in understanding in what exactly is going on. Firstly, they do not need an actual government or a geographic location to establish a caliphate. They target areas with weak intelligence and governments that are paying attention to other issues such as political correctness, and they infiltrate and drive their agenda in these areas.
The world saw new images of ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi this week as he warned followers that the battle of Islam against the Crusaders is a long battle, he said. Do we know how to fight this battle, and are we prepared to engage in sort of the long haul of this battle?
Well, your question is, do we know how to fight this battle? Of course we know how to fight this battle, but are we prepared to take on this battle? We can fight this battle, and it's very easy. We deport every extremist imam in the country. We cancel visas of people coming in from Iran and Saudi Arabia to preach hatred in this coming month of Ramadan to the West. And we stop the construction of new mosques without vetting the people behind them, and stop foreign funding from Islamist countries. That's a very good step towards fighting this extremism. So we do know how to fight them. The question is, are we prepared to? And unfortunately, Europe is being run by governments that do not care about their Christian heritage and Christian religion. They don't care about anything that's happening. All they want to do is rule and stay in power, and they use the political correctness machine to do so.
Talk about the political correctness. Is that going to be the death of our societies around the world?
It is the current beginning of the death. It's already happening. There are areas in France where Christians cannot walk freely. President Macron has come out saying that the Islamist movements want to secede from France. This is a leader of a country telling you that he has lost control. He's admitting finally that he has lost control. There are serious agendas being played in that region. Look, I am a Muslim, but I cannot live in an Islamist theocracy. I can live in a Christian government based on their constitution, because that is where peace lies. I can't live in a place where ISIS rules the area. That's no Muslim with a brain that works would want to live under ISIS, right? And when we come to the West trying to warn the governments and intelligence agencies about what is happening, about the people we fled from, we have this new political correctness agenda that tells us, oh, we're the racists, we're the ones who are traitors, and the extremists needs to be understood and embraced, and they have a point, let's listen to them. And sooner or later they're in parliament, they're in government, and there you go in America, you have Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib changing the narrative in Washington that is now affecting the whole, influencing and affecting the narrative around the world, attacking Jews, attacking Christians, and this is just the beginning. So if Christians don't wake up, Christian leaders don't wake up, then we Muslims who fled from extremists can't help you anymore. We tried warning you.
ISIS may have lost their self-styled caliphate in Iraq and Syria, but they are still a threat in many countries, right?
It's not self-styled caliphate. It's a real caliphate. They have announced a caliph, and they have an army, and they have a mission, they have an agenda, and they have a lot of influence, and they have politicians in the West that love them, and they have people who lead organizations, not-for-profit organizations in Australia that refuse to condemn them. They have an agenda that is widespread in different names. It is a well-established caliphate. Let's be real about it. We are fighting a real caliphate. We're not fighting a so-called caliphate. This is the true extremist, Islamist, militant ideology that is taking over our lands and our countries. And you see, with one attack, they took 300 lives in Sri Lanka, injured over 500 people. This is not a so-called caliphate. This is a caliphate in action, and we need to treat it as a caliphate in action, take it seriously, and drive them to the ground.
Powerful interview there. In part two of his interview with George Thomas, Muslim author Mohammed Tawhidi shines a spotlight on Saudi Arabia and his efforts to build bridges between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. You can catch that interview on tomorrow's episode of World Beat right here on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, remembering one of the darkest times in world history, the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were murdered.
It's about the competition. I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, you know, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. Whoa! It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
No Super Falls, man. Come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson. Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
Israel is marking Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Remembrance Day today, honoring those who were killed in the Holocaust. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
Sirens blared, calling Israel to a halt for 2 minutes in honor of the memory of the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust.
It's our first time being here during the Holocaust Memorial, and it was very powerful.
I was praying for peace and everything, and I was thinking about all of the Holocaust and the victims.
All the world, we need to remember this day, but I'm very sad that every day I think the memory is going and going down, so my children don't know nothing about the Holocaust.
Events began the previous night when the Israeli flag was lowered to half-mast at Yad Vashem's Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Reuven Rivlin addressed the opening ceremony of Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Remembrance Day. Both spoke about growing anti-Semitism and the need to fight it.
We live in a paradox today. The worldwide admiration for the Jewish state is accompanied in certain circles with the rise of hatred of Jews. The radical right, radical left, and radical Islamic groups agree on only one thing: hatred of Jews. This is not a legitimate criticism of Israel, but a systematic, poisonous, and shallow hatred that constantly undermines the legitimacy of the Jewish nation state and only the Jewish nation state.
Political forces where anti-Semitism and racism are part of their language, their legacy, or their ideology can never be our allies. There is no such thing as loving Israel and hating Jews, just like there is no such thing as loving Jews and hating Israel.
Israel remembers the Holocaust every year according to the Hebrew calendar on the anniversary of the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Though the Jewish fighters were almost all killed, it marked a shift in thinking from victim to fighter. Later, it helped shape Israel's national identity, symbolizing strength and the fight for freedom in the face of death. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, what Bishop T.D. Jakes is doing for the next generation of ministry leaders.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Dallas megachurch pastor and televangelist Bishop T.D. Jakes has announced plans to launch his own online divinity school next January. The Potter's House pastor will serve as the chancellor over the Jakes Divinity School, and it will begin enrolling students early next year. Bachelor's degrees will be offered in the areas of ministry leadership, anti-human trafficking, Hispanic ministry and leadership, and humanitarian leadership. A former Regent University professor has been named the president of the school. Well, that's all for today's first edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can find more news at cbnnews.com and can watch CBN News programs anytime on our CBN News channel. Have a great day.